movies. An average of 2,500 movies are produced each year since 1900. An estimated 250 million people attend movie theaters each year, and it's definitely no surprise that the film industry is worth an estimated $136 billion. The main purpose movies serve are entertainment, but is there more to it? To begin, we first have to acknowledge how movies have become a regular part of our lives. One person that helped introduce film into society is Harris B. Tuttle. Although he did not invent anything, he helped market 16mm gauge cameras. According to Laura White, this resulted in the opportunities to create films for both amateurs and professionals. Today, films are created by a variety of people. Tuttle's marketing efforts furthered the purpose of film when in 1921 he started making movies for the medical profession. Laura White points out that this resulted in surgical operations, research, and other medical cases where motion pictures provided more information than would be possible with still photos. Tuttle helped extend the purpose of film into education. Today, countless educational films help educators explain concepts with detail. When I asked my friend Sayda what movie influenced her the most, she answered with,
For this one, I have to pick a movie called Apocalipto. This movie really changed the way I saw my ancestors and really just how mainly Native American culture and beliefs.
The movie that Sayda is talking about is the 2006 film Apocalipto, which depicted the Mayan kingdom at its peak. Movies like this help educate people, like it did for Sayda, helping her learn about her culture through accurate depictions of her ancestors. Next, I interviewed the Ruby Theater team.
My name is Kelsey and I am the supervisor at the Ruby Theater. And I have been working there for almost a year now. And I was originally drawn to the Ruby. I've always really loved the Ruby Theater. It's always been very captivating because of its history, and it's just the building itself is just a little gem in town, and I've always wanted to be inside of that theater for many reasons, but what the theater means to me and what film means to me is a lot. And I think that, from a very young age, films always sparked my creativity. And so being around and seeing as many films as possible has always helped my brain kind of go outside of itself. And so I thought, it'd be really cool if I could work inside of a theater and see these films in a really historic way and be a part of that.
You see, the Ruby Theater is very iconic. This theater first opened its doors in the summer of 1914. It's one of the oldest and best preserved movie theaters in the country, and it was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1991. It's now owned and operated by Larry Hibbard and Mary Murphy. When I asked Kelsey what movies were most influential to her, she answered with,
I watched a lot of Tim Burton when I was a kid, so like Nightmare Before Christmas and Beetlejuice and all of those things where the computer wasn't quite, they weren't using the computer quite for all of the effects, and a lot of things were handmade still at that time, and there was a lot of stop and go film techniques.
Kelsey's perspective points out a really important aspect of film. It can often point out how technology is evolving.
That transition of technology and cinematography and going from cheesy to absolutely mind-blowing and incredible. I think a lot of kids that would watch those movies these days would probably roll their eyes at them because it's just so fake. But I still just love them, and they have such a special place in my heart.
This evolution is further demonstrated within the evolution of the Ruby Theater itself.
We went from arc projector to xenon projector, and now we're digital. And all that within under 30 years. And each of those presents some kinds of the different kinds of experiences.
This is especially important when you acknowledge that when films started, they were black and white films that were silent. Movies slowly but surely made technological progress over time. One particular movie that showed this progress at its time is King Kong. King Kong, 1933, made waves of awe when it used special effects that were cutting edge at the time. Even though it was released in 1933, it is still a big figure in pop culture today. Today, movies are defining the fact that limits are constantly being raised. Movies today also are defined by incredible shots that have never been captured before. Additionally, movies are also recognized today for their incredible quality and the use of CGI. Movies also have the power to bring people together and build communities. Mary and Larry elaborate on this by discussing the 1988 film Cinema Paradiso, and by also discussing the importance of small-town theater.
Was Cinema Paradiso, which won Best Foreign Film in 1990, and what it spoke to was the importance of a small town theater to a community in forging relationships among people. That movies evoke emotion, they teach us. In this movie, they were teaching values, but it tells the power of storytelling. That movies do tell a story, and so I think it's one of the oldest communal experiences for human beings is storytelling, and movies is our way of telling stories.
And it gave them a communal experience of which everyone in the area could come to at one time or another. You didn't have to profess a certain religion or creed. It was inexpensive enough that all income groups could go there. And one of the few or only downtown spaces that was open to everybody for their social event. And you could share a common experience in doing that. They can come there for various things. They can come for thrills, they can come for adventure, they can come for information and knowledge, and they can come for just pastime or social events.
But we've had people stay in the theater after the film has ended because they want to talk to people next to them that they didn't know before they entered the theater because it had such an impact on them. And that's been fun to see, where people kind of just they just take a little bit of time to process what is it that we just shared together. So the shared experience is really powerful. So we're just happy to be part of it.
Not only do film and cinema help create communal experiences, but they also help create intergenerational connections within families.
And there is a definite intergenerational aspect. And I'm amazed at, especially when we have kids' movies, that it seems like a lot of adults go around town looking for grandkids to bring, because sometimes there are more adults than kids there, but it's connecting those generations together and bring them together so they have some of that common experience.
Yeah, we love that about film, that it is intergenerational, and it's hard to find experiences that can be shared across the generations. Of course, family events, weddings and birthdays and things like that, but where you're actually out and about and having that, a film is pretty important for that.
Yeah.
Films also have the power to build on and adapt culture. Kelsey, in her interview, also explained another one of her favorite types of movies.
So for me, I love old gangster films. So I always, I don't know what it is. I don't know if I was like a gangster in my past life, but I get this like deep feeling from them, and this weird understanding for these crazy characters. And so for me, I think one of the most important movies ever made was The Godfather, and I think it exemplifies just the human condition, and just really does a good job of not overly creating this fantasy world of what gangsters are, but really just portraying the reality of it, and the saga and the drama, and it's just absolutely beautiful and heartbreaking. But yeah, I can't get. They've had the biggest impact on my life, and I think they're very important because it's a huge part of American history, and it's a crazy part of American history. But it happened, and it does happen, and I think it's important, and I especially for American history. So I'm gonna go with The Godfather.
Now you come to me and you say, Don Corleone, give me justice. You come into my house and you ask me to murder me. ask you for justice. That is not justice.
The Godfather helped pave the way for movies and TV shows all about organized crime, which are still popular today. Examples include Breaking Bad and Narcos. Another culture-changing movie is The Searchers. This movie is seen as a defining movie for Western culture and is said to have influenced prominent filmmakers such as George Lucas and Steven Spielberg in their work. But what other purposes do film have? Studies from Bangladesh suggest that cinema has a huge importance on society. Cinema helps us better understand the world around us in several aspects. This influence was further examined in Bangladesh by sociology discipline, Istiaq Mahamud. He claims that cinema has been one of the greatest influences in our modern life, and it's also a form of art, the seventh art along with photography, architecture, literature, play, painting, and music. This is further fortified by a survey conducted among students of Bangladesh. This survey found that 90% of the respondents think that changing our rituals, behavior, and outlook towards life is somehow connected to what we see on our screen. Films reflect on every aspect of society, and that is why they are so successful and therefore influential. Mary adds to these ideas by discussing one movie that she thinks has had a huge impact on society.
The other one was that came up right away for me was 1967. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, where a white woman and an African American man, doctor, fall in love and they go home to her parents for dinner. And this is during the Civil Rights Movement, and I think it reflects the changing values, the changing opinions about that. It was very controversial at the time, as was Citizen Kane. And so I think those were two that reflect the changing value in America.
She also adds that,
and if you're writing films, if you are producing films, you have a tremendous amount of power to inspire, to talk about the themes of it. We give those artists the freedom to talk about the courage and wisdom and right and wrong and beliefs and and values and hope, and it's hard to find another forum for doing that is as impactful as that is.
Charmaine Chenoy is one of those filmmakers that Mary refers to. This Academy Award-winning director/filmmaker expresses how films have a power to influence legislators in an interview with Credit Suisse.
I know that the films I'm creating will be used by activists to lobby people, will be used by legislators to prove that they need to force tougher laws on something, will be used by students to educate themselves in universities and schools. It's great to be walking on a red carpet with Leonardo DiCaprio or to have more Oscars than him, but the real change is when you see legislation being passed and some woman's life being saved.
Chenoy's film that had an impact is called A Girl in the River. This film specifically had a huge impact on honor killings by shining a light on the issue. After watching this film, the Pakistani minister was driven to change the law on honor killings, ultimately saving the lives of hundreds of women. Another important film is The Hate U Give. This was a teen drama that simultaneously addressed critical social issues like police brutality and racism. The movie Hidden Figures gave credit and highlights the US space program's unsung heroes, the black female engineers and mathematicians of NASA who helped launch the first American into orbit in outer space. The movie Tangerine helped normalize people in society that were and still are largely marginalized through comedy. This film was about two transgender women. The Day After Tomorrow helped increase the awareness of climate change. In fact, Yale researchers found that this movie appeared to have a strong influence on watchers' risk perception of global warming. Another important film to note is Trevor. This film helped establish the 24-hour crisis hotline for the LGBTQ+ community. Almost 20 years on, the Trevor program has helped hundreds of thousands of young people and also provides workshops and online resources. So it's pretty clear that films have a much deeper purpose than just entertaining. Films have the power to educate, to highlight technological advancements, to make and build relationships, to change culture, and also to illuminate on social issues. Ultimately, film has the power to change the world.